All right, so are you ready to boost your English fluency?
Yeah, always.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into idioms and phrasal verbs, going way beyond the basics.
Yeah, even advanced learners can trip up on these.
They can be tricky.
They really can.
But think about it like this. You've got the grammar down pat, you've got a solid vocabulary, but now you really want to sound natural like a native speaker.
Right.
That's where these idioms and phrasal verbs really come into play. They're like those secret ingredients that just add so much flavor.
And you know what? We've got a fantastic selection for you today, pulled from a 3-hour workshop. We've condensed it down to like the juiciest, most essential parts.
Yeah, we're going to break down these expressions, look at all those little subtle nuances, and by the end of this deep dive, you'll not only understand them, but you'll be able to use them confidently.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
To actually use them.
Exactly.
All right.
So let's jump right in with an idiom that's all about approaching information with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Okay.
Take it with a grain of salt.
I love that one.
It's so good, right? So let's say you've got a colleague who's known for embellishing stories just a little bit. You might say something like, he tends to exaggerate, so take his stories with a grain of salt.
It's a really nice way to express caution, without like directly accusing somebody of, figging.
Right.
You're basically saying, yeah, I'm listening, but I'm also keeping in mind that this might not be the whole truth.
And it's so important, I think, especially these days where we're just bombarded with information from all sides.
Yeah, we have to be really careful about what we believe.
Right.
Take it with a grain of salt. It's like a little reminder to pause, think critically before we just accept anything as like the absolute truth.
That's so important. So let's shift gears a little bit to a more lighthearted idiom, spill the beans.
Oh, I love this one.
This is when someone reveals a secret,
Yeah.
often unintentionally, like that classic surprise party scenario.
Yeah, somebody let the cat out of the bag.
Right, it's usually used in a playful, kind of teasing way, not like a serious accusation.
It's like, oh, come on, you can tell me, I won't be mad.
Exactly. I think spill the beans is a perfect example of how idioms can inject humor into language.
Yeah, it's so much more fun than just saying reveal a secret.
Right.
It just adds that little bit of personality.
Okay, so next up we've got an idiom that's all about flexibility. Play it by ear.
Oh, this is a good one.
And this one comes in handy when you're not really sure what the plan is or, things are subject to change.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you're meeting up his friends for dinner, but the restaurant's packed.
Oh, yeah.
What do you say?
Let's just play by ear. We'll see if we can get a table or maybe try somewhere else close by.
Exactly. It's all about being adaptable and going with the flow.
Yeah, that's a really important skill to have.
So important.
Especially when things are, changing all the time.
Right. Playing it by ear lets you adjust those plans and make decisions as you go.
Makes sense.
Okay, so now let's talk about an idiom that's often used when someone's avoiding the main point or being a little evasive beat around the bush.
Oh, I don't like when people do that.
Have you ever noticed how some people just dance around a topic instead of getting straight to the point?
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you're asking a friend about something kind of sensitive,
Right.
but they just keep talking about everything else except what you want to know.
You want to say, just stop beating around the bush.
Right. Tell me what's going on.
What's the deal?
Exactly. It's important, though, to pay attention to the context and the speaker's tone.
Yeah.
Sometimes people beat around the bush because they're uncomfortable or nervous.
Or maybe they're trying to protect someone's feelings.
Right. It's not always about being intentionally evasive.
Right.
Sometimes it's just about finding the right words or approaching a difficult conversation with sensitivity.
That makes sense.
That leads us to an idiom that's all about neutrality, sit on the fence.
Ah, yes.
This one describes someone who's hesitant to choose a side.
They can't make up their mind.
They just can't decide. So picture a heated debate, right? Two people are arguing passionately for these opposed viewpoints.
They're going at it.
But then there's that one person who's just sitting there undecided, carefully weighing those pros and cons.
They're on the fence.
They're sitting on the fence.
Yeah.
And you know what? It can be frustrating if you're looking for a clear commitment.
Yeah, I want to know what side you're on.
Right.
But sometimes, it's good to gather more information before you make a decision.
Right. Sometimes it's a sign of being thoughtful and careful.
Yeah, you want to consider all the angles.
Exactly.
Before you jump in.
Okay, let's move on to an idiom that I think we can all relate to, bite off more than you can chew.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
I know we've all been there, especially when it comes to like new challenges or those ambitious goals.
Yeah, it's that feeling of, oh, I can totally do this. And then you realize,
What have I gotten myself in?
I have way too much on my plate.
I remember once trying to learn 3 languages at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Talk about biting off more than I could chew.
Yeah, that's ambitious.
It was fun and challenging, but I quickly realized I needed to scale back.
Yeah, one at a time.
One at a time.
It's easy to get caught up in that initial excitement.
Right.
But we have to be realistic about our time and, what we can actually handle.
Biting off more than you can do can lead to burnout.
And stress.
And you might not even reach your goals.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's better to start small, build a solid foundation, and then gradually take on more.
One step at a time.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
And speaking of taking shortcuts, let's talk about an idiom that often has a bit of a negative connotation: cut corners.
Uh-oh.
This suggests doing something in a hasty or incomplete way to save time or money, but it can compromise quality.
Yeah, you end up sacrificing something important.
Imagine a construction company trying to finish a project quickly and cheaply.
Right, they might use cheaper materials.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
skip some safety checks.
And those consequences could be huge.
Yeah.
It's like a reminder that sometimes it's worth investing that extra time and effort to do things properly.
In the long run, it pays off.
Now let's talk about trends. Jump on the bandwagon.
Oh, I see this all the time.
All the time, especially with like fashion technology, social media. A new trend pops up and everybody's doing it.
Everyone wants to be part of it.
It's that fear of missing out.
Yeah, that FOMO.
Right. But it's important to remember you don't always have to follow the crowd.
You can make your own choices.
Think critically and do what actually interests you.
Yeah, what aligns with your values.
Exactly. Okay, let's lighten things up again with a playful idiom: pull someone's leg.
Oh, I love this one.
This one's all about teasing in a good-natured way.
Yeah, just a little bit of fun.
Like, I'm just messing with you.
Exactly.
Imagine you're telling a friend this crazy story.
Right, and they believe you.
They totally believe it.
And then you're like, come on, I was just pulling your leg.
It's all about that delivery and the tone.
It's gotta be lighthearted.
Right.
Playful.
It's a great way to build rapport.
Yeah, it shows you're comfortable with each other.
Right. But make sure the other person knows you're joking.
Yeah, you don't want to cause a misunderstanding.
And finally, let's wrap up this first round of idioms with burn the candle at both ends.
This is a classic.
This one really captures that feeling of being overworked, stressed out, just exhausted.
Yeah, you're going nonstop.
Think of someone juggling multiple jobs, family responsibilities, and still trying to have a social life.
They're burning the candle at both ends.
It's a reminder that we need to find a balance and take care of ourselves.
We can't do it all.
Right. We need to prioritize well-being
Yeah, set boundaries.
and find ways to recharge.
And relax.
Okay, so that was our exploration of some amazing idioms. We covered skepticism, humor, flexibility, directness, neutrality, ambition, quality, trends, playfulness, and balance.
That was a lot.
It was a lot.
But we did it.
We did it.
And now, are you ready for phrasal verbs?
Oh, I am so ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dive into those phrasal verbs. Let's start with hold off, which basically means to postpone or delay something. Like, we're going to hold off on making a decision until we have more information.
Yeah, it's like hitting that pause button.
Exactly. Giving yourself some time to think things through.
Gather more insights, maybe wait for a better moment.
Makes sense, right? Yeah.
It's a good one. All right, so next up, put someone up.
Okay, this one's all about hospitality, offering a place to stay.
Right. Imagine a friend's visiting your city.
You could say, hey, don't even bother with a hotel. I can put you up at my place.
Such a nice gesture.
It is. It's like making someone feel welcome and comfortable.
Exactly. Now let's get a little more nuance with come down to.
Okay, so this is used to highlight like the essential element of something.
Right, the core of a situation.
Yeah, like if you're analyzing a problem with lots of different factors,
Right.
You might say, ultimately, it all comes down to effective communication.
It's about cutting through the noise and finding what really matters.
Exactly, getting to the heart of the matter.
Okay, so next we got pull through, which conveys this idea of resilience and overcoming challenges.
Yeah, like when someone's going through something really tough.
Right, maybe a serious illness or a personal crisis.
You could say we're all hoping they pull through this.
It's like an expression of hope and support.
Yeah, you're acknowledging the difficulty, but you believe they can overcome it.
It's powerful. Now let's shift gears to a phrasal verb with a much more dramatic meaning: wipe out.
Oh, this one's intense.
Yeah, it usually refers to complete destruction or elimination.
Like think about a natural disaster.
A hurricane or a tsunami.
Yeah, you might say the storm completely wiped out the coastal towns.
It's a strong image. It emphasizes that devastation.
It really does. Okay, so how about a phrasal verb with multiple meanings: break into?
Okay, this one's tricky
It can be.
because it can mean a couple of different things.
Right.
So on one hand, it can refer to illegal entry.
Like someone tried to break into my car last night.
Right. But it can also mean entering a new field or profession.
Yeah, like she's trying to break into the music industry.
That's right. So context is super important here.
Yeah, pay attention to those surrounding words.
Figure out what they really mean, right? Set about.
This one implies a determined and purposeful approach to something.
Like when you're starting a new project.
Yeah, you might say, we're setting about to create a more sustainable business model.
It suggests a clear intention and a plan of action.
You're taking charge.
You're making things happen.
And last but not least for this round, step up.
This one often means taking on more responsibility or rising to a challenge.
Yeah, like in a leadership situation.
Imagine someone volunteers to lead a project when no one else will.
You could say he really stepped up and took charge.
It shows initiative and courage.
And a willingness to go above and beyond.
Okay, round 2 of phrasal verbs. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
Let's do it. Bring on.
Perfect example right there.
I know, right?
So bring on often means to cause something to happen, sometimes with negative consequences.
Right. Like stress can bring on headaches.
Lack of sleep can bring on fatigue.
Eating too much sugar can bring on a sugar crash.
It's all about cause and effect.
Right. Recognizing those consequences.
Okay, next up we have track down, which means to find something after a thorough search.
Like when you're looking for something specific.
Yeah, a rare book or a long-lost friend.
You might say, I finally tracked down that old photo album.
It takes effort and persistence.
Right. You don't give up until you find it.
Determination is key. Okay, so now for a phrasal verb that conveys a sense of gradual disappearance. Fade away.
I like this one.
Yeah, it's got a certain feel to it.
Right, like memories can fade away over time.
Enthusiasm can fade away if you don't nurture it.
And that excitement for a year trend can fade away when something new comes along.
Yeah, it's a reminder that things change.
Nothing lasts forever.
All right, so let's move on to map out, which is all about planning and strategizing.
Yeah, when you need a clear plan of action.
Like when you're preparing for a big project,
Or a trip.
you might say, we need to map out our travel route.
It's about creating a roadmap.
Visualizing those steps.
Anticipating those challenges.
Okay, and when it's time to get laser focused, we use zero in on.
Love this one. It's like narrowing down your focus.
Right, honing in on that one crucial aspect.
Like a team trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, they might say, let's zero in on the main cause of the delay.
You're blocking out distraction.
Concentrating all your energy on that one thing.
You ready for a fun one? Screw up.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
This is a casual way of admitting you made a mistake.
And usually a pretty big one.
Like, I totally screw up that presentation.
It's okay to laugh at ourselves sometimes.
Right, we're all human.
We make mistakes.
And last but not least, another multi-meaning phrasal verb, lay off.
Oh, context is key with this one.
It is, because it could mean a couple of different things.
Right.
On one hand, it could mean to terminate someone's employment.
Like the company had to lay off workers due to the recession.
Right. But it can also mean to stop doing something or to ease up.
Like, hey, lay off the junk food.
Or lay off the video games you've been playing all day.
So many possibilities.
So many possibilities. Wow, we covered a lot of ground with those idioms and phrasal verbs.
We did. It's amazing how much they can add to our language.
Right. They give it so much depth and color and personality.
I think what's really interesting is how they reflect our culture.
Yeah. It's like getting a glimpse into how people think and what they value.
And their sense of humor.
So for our listeners out there who want to master English, what are some key takeaways?
Well, first of all, don't be afraid to try them out. The more you use these expressions in real conversations, the more natural they'll become.
Right. It's like practice makes perfect.
Exactly. It's like learning a new dance step. It might feel awkward at first, but the more you do it, the smoother it gets.
I love that analogy. And it reminds me, we can't just passively learn these expressions.
Yeah, you got to use them.
We have to actively integrate them into our language.
And another important thing is to pay attention to context. Idioms and phrasal verbs can have different meanings depending on how they're used.
Right. So you have to consider the surrounding words, the tone of voice, the whole situation.
It's like being a detective.
A language detective.
You gotta gather those clues to figure out the real meaning.
So what are some practical steps our listeners can take to really make these expressions stick?
One thing you can do is create your own examples using the idioms and phrasal verbs we talked about.
Okay.
Relate them to your own life, your work, your hobbies.
Make them personal.
Exactly. The more personal the connection, the easier it'll be to remember.
I like that. And what about immersing yourself in authentic English content?
Oh, that's huge. Movies, TV shows, podcasts, books.
It's like surrounding yourself with the language.
And pay attention to how native speakers use these expressions.
It's like getting a free language lesson.
And remember, learning a language takes time.
It's a journey.
There's always something new to discover.
So embrace the challenge, have fun with it, and celebrate your progress.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a pleasure diving deep into these expressions with you and our listeners today.
And to all our listeners out there, we'd love to hear from you. Which idiom or phrasal verb resonated with you the most? How are you going to use them in your everyday conversations? Share your thoughts, your questions, and your experiences with us on social media. Let's keep this conversation going and keep exploring the amazing world of the English language together.